morning meeting. So I'm just glad to see all of you here. And if we didn't have so many, I'd have everybody at least tell us their name, but we'll do that another time. So I'm still looking. Do you see Joan?
I don't. I'll send her an email. And we could maybe, Jaquie might, well, let's see.
So Jaquie is here. So we have a kind of power pack program tonight. We have Joan Esposito, who is going to talk to us about the national perspective on the election. Jaquie Algee from SEIU talk about the women's perspective. I will talk about voting in Chicago. Jeanette Foreman will talk about the school board. Hold on. I'm sorry, that was the switchboard calling me. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to some and present to others Miss Jaquie Algee, my good friend in the struggle. Jaquie, can you hear me?
Betty, Joan just came in.
She's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll keep the correct order. Joan Esposito, who is known for all of her prowess as a news commentator around this town for a long time. I remember when I thought she was one of the most gracious hostesses on Channel 7 back a few years back, I'll say. Okay, but without further ado, let's welcome. I present to some and introduce to others Miss Joan Esposito.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. Good to see you, Jaquie. It's been a while, and it's great to be here.
So, Joan, do you want to start? We were looking for your brief overview of election results, and I know, and we all sort of know that there's still a lot of we need to understand, but you've been doing this for a long time, so we thought we'd start with you. And, at the end of the meeting, we'll all want to have a discussion about implications, but if you could give us the broad overview to get us started, that would be great.
The broad overview is that, like a lot of people, I was staggered by this. We were doing everything right. She had a great campaign, no major missteps. We had a huge ground game. And I know that a lot of people are saying now, 2020 hindsight, well, the Democratic Party needs to, reach out to the working person more. Everybody said it was the economy and inflation. And maybe that is true, but the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about is racism and misogyny. And I think racism and misogyny made the difference in this election. Had Kamala Harris been a man, particularly a white man, we would have President Kamala Harris right now. And it drives me crazy to see all these pundits saying, well, we've got to reach out to the working class voter. I think that this campaign did she was talking about help to buy a home. She was talking about all the kitchen table issues that the working class voter wants. And I think the white men, Hispanic men, and white women without a college education put this man back in the White House. They couldn't vote for a woman. And I think if we made an error in our calculations with this election, it was thinking that we were beyond these things. And I don't know if the pollsters and the academics will ever be able to accurately get a figure of how much, because somebody asks you, why did you vote for Trump? Are you going to say, well, I really hate black people. Oh, I hate them. I just, I wish they would all go away. Nobody's going to say that. They're going to say, oh, inflation. It was inflation. I don't think we're ever going to get an honest appraisal of this election, but I think the misogyny and the racism runs deep. And there's an interesting phenomenon because Hispanic men really voted for Trump. And some of the researchers are saying, well, after all that Puerto Rican stuff, how could they? But there's apparently a phenomenon where once you come here and get established, you don't think of yourself as an immigrant anymore. You think of yourself as an American. And you want to separate yourself from those people over there, the immigrants, them? That's not me. How many times have you heard reporters talking to people and they say, well, he's not going to deport me. I'm a good immigrant. How many times are we going to have to listen to that? And then a couple of years from now, it's going to be, well, I didn't think he would deport our mother, our father, our grandmother, because they were good tax-paying citizens of the United States. I think that for all of the soul-searching Democrats need to do, reaching out to blue-collar voters is all well and good. We should reach out to all different demographics of voters, but we cannot pretend that racism and misogyny do not play a role. When we've got to, I'm very sad to say, consider that going forward. I really do. So that's my take. And I get really mad when, well, we have to do this big, deep analysis and what she did wrong. She didn't do any damn thing wrong. She didn't. Except for who she was. So I'm now going to get off of my soapbox. And there's how I feel about it.
Thank you. Wow. So Jaquie, Algee, we'll do questions and discussion at the end. Jaquie Grimshaw she'll be here soon.
Does anyone have a question for Joan? I'm sorry, I thought I was off mute.
This is Mary. I just have a comment, Joan. I heard an interview with Nancy Pelosi, and I missed a lot of what you said, but I caught the tail end when you were talking about Kamala. Nancy Pelosi was saying the exact same thing in her interview.
Yeah. And there was a roundtable on MSNBC the other night, and a Princeton University professor, because Stephanie Ruhle was going on about the economy and we have to reach out, and he was like, no, just stop. This was, in his opinion, this was racism, pure and simple. I think there was also a quite heavy dose of misogyny as well, but I don't disagree with him. And I think people who are trying to say it was messaging or it was this or it was that, they're trying to find normal reasons for a normal defeat in normal times, none of which I think is true.
Apply. You're absolutely right. I think that was Professor Eddie Glaude, I believe.
Yes.
He just went spastic.
Yes, he did.
Take it another second.
And I got to tell you, I was so glad he did that, because, you know, what was it somebody said when something like, you know, like when Democrats lose, they beat up on themselves. When Democrats win, they re-examine themselves. When they lose, they beat up on themselves. And I think we're seeing that sort of Democratic flagellation. And I've about had my fill of it, Betty. I've about had my fill.
Joan, this is Jeanette Foreman. I'm going to talk about this somewhat later, but I'd like to add a dimension to our thinking about that, because though I absolutely agree with you that it is very, very clear that that's what was plugged into by the right wingers, including Trump. We also have to be aware of the methodology that they use to get to that end. And we have to therefore, if we understand that, we need to understand how to plug those holes. Let me remind us of the unrelenting media repetition that drilled into everybody's head for not just the election cycle, but for years. They changed people's minds about Biden, for example, by drilling, oh, he's so old, he's old, he's old, he's old, he's old. They drilled, if you remember, about Hillary, oh, lock her up. She's unfit, she's dishonest, on and on and on. They did the same emotional things using Fox media, and now in a very sophisticated way using X media and using all of the social media. I'm saying that we need to be very, very clear on that, and we need to understand that we've got to look at some legislation that perhaps can do something about that. They can hide behind the First Amendment, but there is a piece that we need to really understand that becomes propaganda, and very, very effective propaganda. What do you say about that?
I think you're exactly right. There's half a dozen right-wing cable stations. There's Sinclair, which is a very conservative company, owns over 200 local TV stations. iHeartRadio owns thousands of radio stations. People have been fed a diet of slanted and distorted coverage of what's going on. And we all have relatives. We sit down with them and they'll say something outrageous that you know came right from Fox, or it's a Republican talking point. And you want to look at them and say, think about what you're saying. You know, some of it doesn't even make any sense, but you're absolutely right. Republicans starting in the 90s started buying up media outlets. And, you know, maybe for a while, the effect was somewhat ameliorated because we had so many local newspapers, you know, that would bring us basically just straightforward facts like they always did, but they're gone. They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
There's no counter element anymore.
High-speed internet would have changed that, but the Republicans have blocked high-speed internet so that it does keep huge amounts of rural people from actually getting access widely to options that they could use for becoming informed. And I mean, the public television and the public radio have long preached that the only way that we have a real democracy is if the fourth estate works, and the fourth estate is media, because without it, people cannot be informed. Michael Moore, the producer in an election long ago, talked about the danger of being able to be proselytized by emotion. Normally, that emotion is fear. And when that happens, we really need to be able to understand that's exactly how all the dictators, including Hitler, did it.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeanette, and Ms. Esposito, thank you so much. Please stay on. I'm sure there'll be other questions for you. I'd like to move to my esteemed friend Jaquie Algee, who's going to talk about the women's perspective.
Yeah, so thank you, Betty and Joan. Thank you for sharing your perspective. You know, I'll start with saying this: we lost. What did we lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
We lost generations of groups and people over time. This didn't just happen last couple of weeks, last couple of months. We have lost people over time. I tell people quite often how important relationship building is. Now, did we have the time to build relationships in 107 days? But what did we have? We had an incredible candidate who I got tired for, and I don't use that word loosely. She was everywhere she needed to be at any time. She spoke to everyone that needed to hear from her at any time, even in personal conversations, let alone large groups, expanded groups. She spoke directly to them. Mm-hmm. One thing that I would say is, because when she first started saying this, is like, okay, if we want to build the middle class, and that's one of the terms that we use, and we don't use it lightly in labor organizing, because labor has been essential to building the middle class in our country, right? And so that's a term that we use because we can. That's what we do. And I thought when she was using it, that would resonate with people, that you want to build. She was offering ways, like Joan said, housing and building small business owners, which my family's there. She offered all these things to get you to that, right? But if you've got a group of people that are listening to you and trying to figure out, yeah, well, how is she going to do this? They also,
no.
Hey, Donna, how you doing, sweetie? It's okay.
We can't hear you.
Jaquie, you muted yourself.
There you are.
Even do that. Did somebody do that to me? We got groups of people that might have said or thought, in hearing that, well, I'm not middle class. My family's not middle class. Talk to me. I'm trying to keep food on the table. I'm trying to keep a roof over. I'm trying to keep these lights burning, right? I'm not thinking about a class that is above me. I'm thinking about the here and the now. What does that mean for me? Talk directly to me. And when she changed and started talking directly to people, it did work. But again, we're talking about the time. She had 107 days. It's very hard for me to say his name. I'm like Whoopi Goldberg. It's very hard for me to say his name. But he had 9-10 years to be on our TVs, in our living rooms, on our radio, wherever, getting free press to say all of the most ridiculous things that he had to say. I've never, when you think about a country that voted for someone that is talking like this, that is what made me cry. That is what made me cry. Back to Joan's point, it's very clear to me. Racism is still so alive in this country. It's it's unfathomable, but it's real. So we, on that wonderful day, July 21st, when President Biden stepped down, she stepped up. There were over 44,000 of us on a call. Majority of them Black women, I'm being one. And we stayed on that call until after midnight. And all I could say, I was sitting there thinking like, okay, the Democratic National Convention is starting here in a couple of weeks. It's going to be here in our hometown. We got to get busy so we can show up right. So I called Sarah, who's shaking her head, and I called some other people and say, hey, we need to meet. and figure out how we're going to show up. And they came. And the women, they're still there. We are still there together. Because why? Yeah, we were hurt last Tuesday night and Wednesday morning when we woke up, if we went to sleep. But the resolve is we got to do something. We got to, shake ourselves off. We got to dust ourselves off, and we got to keep those sleeves rolled up. Why? Because if we want this country to be what we've been fighting for the last 107 days and well beyond that, we don't have a choice. It's not an option. We got work to do. So I'm going to pause for right now because I think I'm going to have a few more minutes after this. Thank you.
Anyone have a question for Jaquie for right now, or you want to wait? Just raise your hand or put it in the chat. Okay.
Can I add something to that, Betty, please, real quickly?
Absolutely.
And when I was thinking about the women that night on July 21st, at first, I thought, let me pull together some Black leaders, women from all, backgrounds, whether it be political and corporate and community and faith. Let me pull some Black women that I know who have some networks that could bring some people together. And as I start putting their names down on a sheet of paper and calling them, I also started thinking about all my other sisters, a lot of them on this call that I'm looking at right now, my Jewish sisters, my Asian sisters, my Latina sisters. I start thinking about them, right? And I said, I can't leave nobody out. We ain't got that kind of time. So.
Okay, I will give my little 2 cents. I have been asked to give you some information on how we voted in Chicago. The total vote in Chicago, and I've lost was 930,808 people voted in the city of Chicago. There were no uncounted ballots left. All of the early voting ballots were counted. And there was a total of 6,111 provisional ballots. I do not understand how in the world we had any provisional ballots at all. And I say that because if you go to the polling place and they can't find you, in Illinois, all you have to do is show ID and register and vote right then. So I don't know what that was. There were 47,000 return ballots that had not yet been counted. This was as of Sunday the 10th. And 43,889 had not been sent back yet. But I believe they have until Wednesday of this week to get them back. I'm not sure about that date. On the other side, there is a slim possibility, and we can keep praying, that the Dems may still be able to take the House. Right now, it's 206 Dems and 213 Republicans. But California is not counted, and they have another week, I believe, before they have all of their ballots counted. If that is the case, Hakeem Jeffries will be the Speaker of the House, and we'll have a little bit of support and a little bit fight back. So California's still out. South Carolina has not counted all of theirs, but they have to be finished by Thursday of this week. Now, when I want to talk a little bit about racism, because Joan was so on point when she said it was racist. Pure and simple, unadulterated. White women in 2016 supported Trump. When they found out who he was in 2020, they did better. But in 2024, they went back And the reason I say that is because where there was reproductive rights on the ballot, they voted to maintain their reproductive rights. But they still voted for Trump at the top of the ticket. So to me, that's just plain racism. I have a PowerPoint that Joy Reid did last night that breaks down the women who did vote for Trump. Jewish women did not. So they were on a whole nother page. I am furious with the people who I saw marching the next day complaining about Gaza, particularly in Michigan, when they opted not to vote because they were so upset that Kamala didn't say what they wanted her to say. They're the ones that are going to suffer more if they think Trump is going to help them. Little ducks, as my grandmother used to say. But I cannot emphasize enough the fact that the same white women that voted for him in 2016 went back and voted for him in 2024, and it was strictly racism and sexism. They wouldn't vote for Hillary because they couldn't vote for a woman. And they absolutely wouldn't vote for Kamala because she was female and Asian and African American. We have to accept this. Those of us on this call know that we have to fight in a different way. We cannot fight by just voting ourselves and bringing along a few other people. The young people that voted for her were devastated because they could not imagine in their wildest dreams that she wasn't going to win. What they should have done was gathered more of their peers to vote for her. Young people could have taken over and we could have won this race. That's where we are lacking in terms of bringing that next generation up. Jaquie and Sarah, myself, worked with Chicago Votes. They brought 5 busloads, 8 bus. No, how many did we end up with? 6, 7, Sarah?
6.
We were supposed to have 8, 6.
Yeah.
Busloads of high school students, half of them Hispanic, many voting for the very first time. But those young people were serious about voting. And we, meaning Sarah and Jaquie and myself, work with them all the time because that's the next generation. And those of us on this call need to join one of those young people's groups and start working with them because they're serious. And the only way we're going to get young people involved is to show them what's involved. They're going to see now. They're going to see. All those families who the spouse is not a citizen and thought that Biden and Kamala were working to make it automatic that if your spouse was here and was an American citizen, you'd get to stay. That's over with. We don't take care of that. That's over with. Forget it. So, and the guy that they put over the border, I saw him today. He said, you know, if your wife is not legal, we just send the whole family back. They don't care. You know, they don't care. And we got to be prepared to see that. That's what's going to happen. If you think they're going to determine, well, if the wife is a citizen or the husband is a citizen, then all the kids can stay and the husband. What they think about that is nothing. They're going to send whole families back. And they better get prepared for it. And we need to find out how we can help and assist. Because Latino men voted for Trump. Latino women did not. They knew what the stakes were. And they did not. Caroline, I'm so glad to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. I'm sorry. I just happened to look up and saw her. But I would like to hear comments from those of you who are on the line, on the call now. First, we're going to hear from Attorney Jeanette Foreman, my high school classmate. And she's going to talk about the school board election, which we didn't know enough about here in Chicago. And then after that, I think we can begin to take questions across the board. And if Ms. Esposito or Jaquie want to make some additional comments into what they said, well, no, we'll have Carol Levine after Jeanette. Carol is our expert on the judicial, the whole judicial system. She can tell you about all of the judges, who's good, who's bad, who's right, who's wrong. When the Supreme Court is meeting, what they're going to be meeting about, she knows all of that.
And Betty, I'm going to tell you some things you can do right now.
See there?
So
I told you. Oh, and
Me too.
that reminded me, the one thing I wanted to say is we can start today deciding who we're going to help to go back in the Senate, because one of our senators will be up in 26. 40 senators are going to be up in 26. We have a chance to change the Senate back. God only knows what he's going to do with the Supreme Court in the meantime. But we also have a chance to maintain what we have in the state legislature. Illinois, Chicago, the 41st ward went for Trump. The whole ward. Now, those of you who are old enough remember, like I do, there used to be Roman Patinsky's ward before he went to Congress. But they'll let you know what you're dealing with in Chicago. The entire 41st ward was red on the map when they showed the maps. So we can start supporting our state legislators. They come up every 2 years. Our Congress people come up every 2 years. We don't have to wait. They're running again come January to keep what we have and see if we can't add more. Adam Kinzinger made a powerful speech over the weekend. You can go on YouTube probably and find it. He was a Republican who stepped down. But I'm talking too much. I'm going over my 6 minutes or whatever it was. So Attorney Foreman, you want to go ahead?
Okay, well, I am bringing good news to us. And just so you know, it's not all gloomy and bad. We jumped in. I'm very, very proud of CWTA for jumping in and taking charge of making sure that we had a maximum input into getting people to become aware that there was the first ever school board election that we, the citizens, had an opportunity to get involved in and to become and to help create informed citizens that could produce a school board that would be responsive to us and not just to the mayor. I thought we did a magnificent job and that contributed very mightily to the outcome, which that outcome is a good one. In that outcome, literally, there were 10 people elected. 3 of those people were complete independents, that is not voted upon or in the or backed by big money interests. The big money interests were the big influencers, I should say, because they had money, were the Chicago Teachers Union and the charter school people. But the community was involved enough, thanks to not only us, but really thanks to the tremendous work of a number of people that put together voter guides. Now, our partners in what we did was WBEZ Public Radio, and who is in partnership with their partners, Chicago Sun-Times, produced a fabulous voter education guide in which people were taught the complexities, how to simplify the complexities of this election, because it was very complex. There were 9 districts. You had to figure out where your district was. There were issues that were very, very difficult and very deep that people had to sort through. And of course, there were a plethora of candidates that nobody knew. So in connection, what we did was we put together a video and a special meeting last month, in which we sorted through with some real good experts that we had to talk about what those issues were, and sort through the various ways that people were approaching those issues, what the history behind some of the issues. Some of those issues had to do with the tremendous budget deficit that is in place. Some of the issues had to do with school choice, a very, very, very controversial thing. And some of the issues had to do with curriculum and some of the huge dropout rate that has, and the fact that you have tremendous numbers of kids graduating who are very, very, very poorly educated. We showed that this is an issue that is not just something that is of interest only to the children and their parents, but how a well-educated constituency is literally the foundation of the health of our whole city. So we made the point that if you really want to move the agenda in any way that you're talking about, including electing good officials, you're going to have to see that you have a high quality education system. And that's what we started down the road in doing. Now, what did happen? Literally, what happened was 3 independents were elected, including Rhymefest, who is a person who has the ear and the understanding and the heart of young people and the art community, very, very, very respected, who will see that the curriculum is one that the young people will find creative and responsive to. So 3 community people were elected, 3 people from the that basically represented the interests or were endorsed by the unions. That is, no, 4 people from the unions, and then 3 people from the charter schools. So that was something that said that all of these interests, all of which have very legitimate points. I don't think there's any boogeyman. I'm not making a boogeyman. I'm saying that that was a very balanced view. There was a good deal of concern and discussion about the racial interest, because Chicago, as we know, is a racially divided city. 11% of Chicago students in the public schools are white. 50% of the school students at this point are Latino or Spanish, and about 35% are African American, I don't have an Asian count and so forth. But the point is that the outcome reflects somewhat the racial constituency that is going to therefore go forward. So where do we go from here? What is the thing that I think and that comes out of this discussion that I think is our takeaway? First of all, we have the ability now as an organization and as with all of the collaborations that we have the ability to step straight to those elected board members right now, as well as the mayor, who will be appointing, who has appointed the other 21, so the other 11. We have the ability to go to them and say, here's what we think about these issues. Here's what we think you should do. And I believe that one of the major things we should get together and say we want to do right away is change the curriculum so that we have a strong, robust, and absolutely impeccable teaching about civics. One of the reasons why people voted as they did in this general election is because they are woefully miseducated. And they've been miseducated for many, many, many years. Newt Gingrich, long ago, started down the path of saying to the Republicans, take control of all of the state boards of education. See that the books that are used are the books that we approve, that say what we want them to say. And they say ridiculous things like Black people learned skills in slavery, and they really were very happy and very well off. I mean, take a look at the idea of what the curriculum is teaching and not teaching in terms of life skills, in terms of finance, money, in terms of particularly how to choose who to vote for. You'll find that there's a lot of ignorant people, and it doesn't have anything to do with race. It has to do with the fact that the control of the education system has been used to dummy down the American people. So that's what I'm saying. Solution number one, let's get busy and send the mayor and the new board members the ideas about what curriculums we want them to do right away, because it's something they can do immediately come January. The second thing we can do is we can send appointees that we're interested in for the mayor to appoint. He has got 11 appointees that he can make. And there are some good people, some of whom were not elected this time that were running. Others that some of our people can tell you are standing in the wings. We could easily just pick up the phone, pick up the email, and send the mayor the ideas of who we want. The second thing, the overview of what we can do is education there's a formal education system, and then there is the popular education system that we partnered with. Chicago Public Radio and Chicago Public TV, but particularly radio, is a very effective education tool. And it is, as seen by what WBEZ did, by creating and putting on information every day about what was going on in the education system and what has happened. We put some of that online, so take a look at some of those. But really, we basically need to support and listen to, get good information from those reporters at public radio, especially, because that's long-form news, long-form journalism that we should partner strongly with. And indeed, we should probably even suggest that we literally connect our education system, our popular education system, to the formal one. So those are the two solutions that I think we could go very strongly with if we really want to do something that could change the things that are going down now. Change that education system curriculum, support public radio and public media. That's my report.
Thank you so much, Attorney Foreman. It was very informative and very helpful, especially for those who may not have had any information about that whole school board process. Now I'd like to hear from Carol Levine to talk to us about the judicial election.
And I'm going to try and keep this very short because I know anyone who voted in Cook County and walked in and hadn't looked at the ballot in advance and saw that there was a 2-page ballot and that the entire second page was nothing but judicial retention. There were 77 judges up for retention in Cook County this election time. And you had the opportunity to vote yes or no. We like this person, they should stay a judge, or no, we want them off the bench. Because, and I'm just going to say, this is my conjecture, because people were, I think, surprised, overwhelmed, and uninformed about judges. There are resources that evaluate and put out rankings on these judges. But because people were not well informed, they skipped that part of the ballot. And I will give you the data. About 480,000 people voted in the city of Chicago. Okay. I haven't gotten the Cook County. Oh, no, over 1 million voted in Cook County. On the judicial races, the average number of votes for these candidates, yes and no votes, came in between 684,000 to up to as many as 779,000. So you know that people didn't vote for judges. However, I will tell you that the majority of the people who did voted just yes on everybody. Right now, as of today, when I was checking the data again, there were no judges. There were a few judges tottering on the brink of less than 60%. 60% is the cutoff for retaining your seat, but all of them had at least 60%. And so even those judges with whom there were questions, and the group that I chair, Courts Matter Illinois, put out, here's where you can get all the information on, and different sources coming from different people, but they determined to keep all of the current judges. So that's that report. I want to take 2 minutes, Betty, if I may, to talk a bit about federal judges, because that's where this election will have the most impact. Okay. The president appoints, the president nominates, and the Senate confirms federal judges to lifetime appointments on the courts. And these are the judges who are making the decisions. It's not just the Supreme Court, it's the federal judiciary. And right now, as we sit here, there are 47 vacancies on the federal judiciary. There are 17 pending nominees, but there is a grand total of 47. These are waiting to be filled. We should work very hard to get our senators, and there are still some in Illinois, to get names in and get these 47 vacancies across the country filled before the inauguration of Donald Trump. Biden can, the question is, Biden can go ahead and nominate all of them now. Usually the nominations come from the state, and there are different states have different ways of making and putting their nominees forth. But the way the process works now is the nominees have to go to the Judiciary Committee for a hearing, and then they vote, and then those that are voted have more than 11 votes, because the committee is 21 people. They then go to the Senate, and the Senate must confirm them. yes, the question in the chat, can the Senate hold them up? Yes, they can. I'm going to read you something that Donald Trump put out today. He was talking about making recess appointments, which have nothing to do with judges. But then he said, additionally, no judges should be approved during this period of time because the Democrats are looking to ram through their judges as the Republicans fight over leadership. And this is not acceptable. That's directly from Donald Trump. So yes, he's urging the Republicans not to confirm any more judges. So those 47 slots, he can make new nominees to. So what I'm saying, you want to do something right now? Get on the phone, get on your email, and let Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth know that judges are a priority and that we want to see no vacancy left behind. And if anybody needs help to do that, get in touch with me. Courts Matter Illinois can help you figure out how to do those things. But this is really important. These judges will have lifetime appointments. And they're the ones who, if I throw out two names, does the name Kaczmarek, Judge Kaczmarek in Texas, mean anything to you? He's an appointee of Trump. Dale Ho, that's another name that you might see, and these are potential Supreme Court nominees. It is very likely, the other thing is very likely that Justice Thomas and Justice Alito on the Supreme Court may retire during Trump's administration, which means he gets to pick their replacements. And believe me, they will be as far right or further right than they are, and they'll be much younger. That's my report, unless there are
Carol?
questions.
I have a
Yes.
question, and I'm just going to jump in, but how realistic is it that if, say, tomorrow 47 judges were put up, that they could all get confirmed in this short period of time?
Well, if Senator Durbin is willing to forego some process, which he has been unwilling to do,
Right.
he's a traditionalist. If he's willing to forego some process, yeah, you could move those nominees through very quickly. He could set up marathon hearings for the committee and just do it. But my thing, and I've been worked with Durbin for years, but he's too nice. And this is not a time to be nice. This is a time to move forward. So is it realistic? Probably not. But could we get another 20 or 30? I don't see why not.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
talked
want to
about
leave
that
anything
today.
on the table.
So that's real. That's more realistic, that we could get at least some. The push would be to get as many as possible, but we could get some.
They talked about the fact that Durbin is a problem in that sense, heading up the Judiciary Committee.
Mhm.
And to further explain what Carol just talked about, last week a judge decided that our assault weapons ban was unconstitutional. That was a Trump appointee. So that's what you get when you get one of his.
And
Okay.
yeah, and that's another federal appointee making a decision that affects our lives. So it's not just, don't worry about the Supreme Court, worry about the federal courts, because they hear most of the cases and make most of the decisions.
May I suggest that that this, the urgency of this issue is one that is not, of course, understood widely by the public. Can I suggest that we talk that we talk over the strategy of going to our media partners and asking, like we did with the board, to have them really get on the horn and get and put this issue before the public over and over and over again. I know that we could put it into the the public discussion in radio stations like VON, Betty. But we could probably also ask public radio to do it over and over again, and perhaps make the public very aware and tell them what to do, to contact Durbin and ask Durbin and the Judiciary Committee to move the agenda. Now, I have the question, though, of where and to whom do we turn to urge to submit the names of candidates, because that's way outside of the knowledge base of the average citizen.
The candidates are come to the president in different ways. Generally, presidents have turned to the states, and particularly state senators, to bring them the names of people they think are good. But some states have committees within their state that work on these things and come up with names. And we've brought forward in Illinois through committee work to Senator Durbin and to Senator Duckworth the names of some fabulous people, a good number of whom have been confirmed, who have brought diversity to the bench, who have changed some of the gender balance on the bench here in Illinois. And each state does this. So if you know people in other states, have them talk to their senators and make sure they know that this is a critical issue.
Are the bar associations sufficiently liberal enough to submit names that just as the bar association, as I've understood, were some of the areas that are the places we went to get the nominations for the judges to do away with and the judges that we wanted to confirm. What are they sources for those kinds of nominations?
Yes, and many of them have committees, but also some of the legal groups have committees. I'm not a lawyer, but on my Courts Matter Illinois committee, one of the lawyers is an employment lawyer. That's the law she works on. In her group is very active in looking to find nominees who understand the law writ large, but that particular part of the law as well. And that's that. So yes, but there's lots of groups beyond just the bar associations.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jeanette,
anybody and everybody should
Jeanette,
be working on it.
Margaret's had her hand up for a while.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm hogging stuff.
Margaret, go ahead. Right. How you doing? Marguerite? Where did she go? Where did she go? She had her hand up and I thought she went to, I think she went to come off mute, and I think she may have.
If she comes back on, let's go to her.
Okay, yeah, if she comes back on, we'll go to her. I'm not comfortable with the bar associations all the time, just my personal opinion, but I know very specifically that an African-American appellate court judge has been dinged every time he came up, simply because of a problem that one of his clients had 20 years ago. And they're still dinging him every time he comes up. So I don't have a lot of faith in bar associations, but that's my personal opinion. Oh, here's Margaret back.
Apologies. As soon as I touched the screen, it went away. Thank you for everybody's really brilliant ideas and comments. I just wanted to add a little bit of perspective from the things I'm hearing and the people I am cavorting with. So, I read a lot on social media, mostly activists who are to the left, I think, of this group, and who I think rightly so, Betty, you pointed out, for being really useless, for sitting on their hands or voting for Jill Stein. And I think that, we have to find a way, I think, because I think there's a lot of people in Chicago that are in this camp, to really convince them that we need everybody in this fight, and we just can't leave anybody on the sidelines. And lately, the rhetoric, which I think has increased in the last 6 or 7 days, blaming the Democrats and blaming the failure for the Democrats to connect with the working class party. But so going to what Jaquie was saying, I think, not only is it racism and misogyny, but, we're looking at 150 years, from Reconstruction that never punished anybody and let this fester. I think there's so many other factors that I think we have to talk about, including the Electoral College, including the media, including that a lot of people I met knocking on their doors were sort of in a zombie state of either on drugs or some kind of just gone, like you're trying to talk to someone and they've checked out in some way. So, I mean, these are the people we do have to connect with. And the last couple of things I want to say was, I was on a few calls last week with working families and the Movement Voter Project. And both of those calls were extremely uplifting. One, because Movement Voter Project is mostly youth of color around the country. And what they had were reports from their frontline work in Georgia and Native American and ballot measures, and really repudiating the idea of loss, really saying what happened was victories. And that I think we also have to push the narrative that, as people are pushing back against the liberals and the Democrats, that we have to really continue to talk about what hard fought victories the liberals and the Democrats managed to eke out in the last 50 years, in spite of tremendous state repression, in spite of families having people in prison, in spite of having police violence, in spite of having, things that were extraordinarily difficult to fight against. And I think that, when you're talking about connecting with young people, we're in a good position to keep saying, okay, this was a victory, this was a victory, this was a victory. So, we have to keep saying, like, this is not just one and done in a day, that the struggle continues, and, we're in it for a lifetime. So what my point is, I think that as we're talking about judges and strategy, I do think it's really good to connect with some of these national organizations that are particularly young and diverse and in rural communities, and have Native American leadership, have Latino leadership. And another thing I think we have to discuss broadly is the fantasy of the Latino vote, because we know that a lot of so-called Latinos that have come into this country are right-wing, have participated in coup d'etats in many countries. In Cuba, they're like the most reactionary people. They've have given favorable status in this country over Haitians. They have racism in their own country. And we have to dispel this myth that this is a monolithic voting bloc. And, we have to also talk about who got put at the front of the line to enter this country, and the kind of, elite lifestyles they lived in the country that they came from. So, and there's a lot to unpack, is I guess what I'm saying. And I think that we have to just keep repudiating a lot of the mythology, and also connecting to, sort of the more radical people around the country. And the last thing I'll say is that the call with working families last Thursday had 150,000 people on the call. And what they're trying to do is create local, for lack of a better word, cadre or, community groups, protecting groups. They're calling for refuse, resist. And I think that that's not a bad idea, to find your people, create your people, prepare for, the worst that might happen, and, stay informed and etc. Thanks.
Thanks, Marguerite. There's a question in the chat, Carol. Do you need a super majority of the Senate? I thought it was a simple majority. It's a simple majority to approve a judge, right?
They need a simple majority, not a super majority.
Okay.
It's like
Thank
any other appointee. And it's why, it seems so strange that Trump wants to do a bypass on the process of the Senate approval to his cabinet and other appointees when he has a majority.
Right. So I'd like to ask if Ms. Esposito and Ms. Algee want to give closing remarks, as well as Attorney Foreman and Carol. I think what I want to say is we have to stay in the fight for the long haul. We cannot give up, and we need to start fighting for who we're going to support in the midterms. That fight starts in January. And then we also will have a city council coming up that we'll need to consider. So having said that, Ms. Esposito, you want to give us a closing remark?
I don't know, was it Marguerite or Carol who said, refuse, resist. That's my motto going forward. And just one little anecdotal thing. We were joyful campaigners. We would have been wildly joyful had our candidate won. But I can tell you, since Donald Trump won, the number of trolls on my radio text line has increased by a factor of, 10. And they won, their side won, and they're still mad. They're madder than ever. The texts that I'm getting are mean and awful and cruel. And I keep saying, dude, you won.
You won.
This is when you're supposed to be happy. And the takeaway for me from that, anger is real. It feels good, it gets your blood moving, but it's not sustainable. So I think when people finally wear out on the anger, I think we got a real shot at taking back both houses in the midterms. I really believe that with all my heart. They're gonna fall apart, and we are gonna refuse and resist.
I totally agree with you, Joan. And one thing that bothers me is the guy with the worm in his head that's going to be in charge of Health and Human Services. That bothers me. Miss Algee?
Yeah, there are a few things that bother me that surfaced for me last week when we talk about education, and attorney spoke about that too. When I heard numbers last week and the week before that we had seniors, and there was a percentage of seniors who were graduating from Chicago public schools who had a third grade reading level. That for me was quite upsetting, because what I know, and all of us should assume, is that percentage of kids who are graduating at third grade level look like me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem. We go back to the race. So now if we want to do something, there are a number of things that have just been mentioned that we can do, right? We want to be proactive. We have no other choice. So to Carol, I want to sit down with you and say, who are these judges, right, that we should be meeting with Senator Durbin tomorrow or as soon as possible and saying these are the ones we want. Who are the judges? And let's schedule the meeting. Let's do that now. What I'm not clear on is that, of course, you said maybe it might average out to 20 to 30, but do they all come? Of course, they don't all come from this area, this region. How can we find out who those other judges are or who the other groups are? I see Betty getting ready to answer for me, I think. The groups
There's
are
17 that already have their hearings. So hopefully
Okay.
we could get those out, Carol, those 17.
Yeah. The
Okay.
17 that have had hearings come from all over the country. I mean, the vacancies are in judicial districts all over the country. So,
Okay.
but they've all been nominated by Biden, who is, you know, and of the nominees that he has brought forward in his term so far, I think there was one and only one that Courts Matter Illinois suggested people call and oppose. All the others, and we look at it across the country. So, and I've got colleagues doing this in other states as well. So I think, you know, when you say who are they? The ones in the pipeline, we have the names of. I can tell you where to find them, where to get them, and that sort of thing. But I think it's not so important to have the names as to say, we want Biden's nominees confirmed, whoever they are.
Okay.
And so the names are less important than we're concerned about the federal judiciary. We can't do anything about the Supreme Court and things like that right now. But what we can do something about is push the confirmation of Biden's nominees for federal judges. And as I said, there are 47 vacancies, there's 17 nominees, so there are 30 slots where we don't have names yet. Okay, they're not all Illinois slots. So we have to see, you know, if you know people in other states, you know, have them check and get to their senators and say, bring a name forward, get it to Biden, bring it up. And then we have to, but what we can do particularly is get to Senator Durbin and push him hard, nicely, but hard. I'm always worried he's going to get mad at me. But push him to keep this moving quickly. We don't have much time. And yeah, they can slow things down if they want. And as I said, Trump's already said, I don't want any of these guys confirmed,
Of course
any
he
of these
does.
people. So
If I could interject for just a second, don't worry about making Durbin mad because he tends, as you said, he's set in his ways. He's like Biden. He's been in the Senate forever. We have a way of doing things. I'm not getting rid of the filibuster until he starts getting grief. And then all of a sudden, Dick Durbin moves off the dime.
That's right.
And I really believe if he is perceived as an old fart who's hanging on to the old system, I think he's going to lose his seat next time around. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to run again, but that's just
I
my
don't think
personal
he's
opinion.
I'm looking at Durbin perhaps retiring soon.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, let's get busy. Your sleeves are rolled up. Let's do what we got to do, right? Because this is too important. And I also want to send a message to President Biden. You do every doggone thing you need to do before these next 69 days or whatever, however many days are up, including pardoning your son. Okay? You do whatever you need to do because trust me, once he gets in, I still can't say his name. That's it. Done deal.
I saw a funny message from a friend today that thinking of that said that Biden should resign and let Kamala be the president for the next 2 months. I thought
I
that was
saw
the
that
funniest.
too. I saw that too. Mm-hmm.
I loved
He
it.
could
Well,
do it.
for-
He could do it.
he could do it. That would just that would fix everybody. That would make me so happy. But anyhow, I love keep the phrase do something. I think we should continue to organize. I'm loving what Margaret said about framing what is going on. One of the things that the opposition was very good at is framing things that kept us always in the defense.
No, that's right.
We
That's right.
absolutely need to be able to continue to organize to frame that we did win. I mean,
That's right.
imagine the power of in almost less than 100 days, we raised more money than them. We raised more, if we just had double that time, we would have beat their butt. I mean, we can frame this thing so that we celebrate our positive, our momentum. Secondly, the idea of aiming people at a positive goal, the midterm elections, and doing what we're talking about in the education committee, really bear down on implementing some serious, pragmatic civic education. There's no good reason why what we're talking about now about electing judges is not a part of a civic education class. And I'm talking about civic education classes that we both throw down about changing our decrepit, horrible education system. But I'm also saying use the media system, because that's the positive education tool that is even more dynamic and more effective to get the education of people that is formally done. I mean, it can be on YouTube and it could be on radio. It could be, but use our media deliberately as an education tool to focus on things that we would call civics, but have a specific focus, like get the judges done and raise up the new leadership to be able to replace a senator when it's time, so on and so forth. Thank you.
I want to just say a special thank you to Jaquie, Algee, and Joan Esposito. You all are absolutely wonderful. Hopefully you can stay a little longer. I personally have to leave, and Judith is going to take over, and I see Jane Ramsey has her hand up. But thank you everyone for participating. This has absolutely been wonderful, and I'm sorry that I have to leave.
Bye, Betty.
Thank you, Betty.
Bye, Betty.
Jane, you had where'd you go?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks. And I'm sorry I had to come in late. But so so when I came in terms of the discussion of the judges, and we've got to move with and pushing Durbin immediately. So what's our plan?
Well, I think we were going to use this meeting to get suggestions, and at the board meeting, we're going to start making our plan. So, but I think we've heard very concrete things to do now, which we have to go over. So I was going to open it up and get thoughts from everybody who's here.
It just to add, and the board meeting's in a couple of days, but given the really short window, we don't even have a window, we have a sliver. Whatever it is, we need CWTA needs to act this week, the latest. And we need to have a set of plans that we collectively with CWTA and all of our partners who are here, we need to move. And Jaquie, I'm looking at you too, because and I know that you have been thinking about this. So thoughts that you have for immediate actions that we can take in the next few days.
I think we huddle, Jane. I think we huddle and get a plan. We just have the luxury of time, and then count in, the holidays and all this stuff coming in, and people are going to be, So we need to do it.
It's gotta be, yeah, it's gotta be, we gotta do some things this week
Yeah.
and keep on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
the
we
judge-
can, I was just gonna say, we can put together the steps you need to take. And to say to people in other states, if your Republican senator is saying, no, I want to slow this down, I don't want to do this on particularly judicial nominations, they're not doing their job. And we need to call them on it and say, it's your job, do it. And we need to say that to our senators, and we need to get these things done.
Carol, can you draft something that we can play with and we can start sending out?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can put, I won't do it tonight, but I will do it first thing in the morning.
Okay, so we can start-
Before I go to the dentist. And I will put something together that we can look at, edit, and then share. And those of you with contacts in other states can send it on. I have a meeting with the states group later this week, so I can share then with them as well.
You know, oh, I'm sorry, Judith. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, but I, want to make sure that we get comments, other
Go
people's
on.
comments.
No, I can wait. Yeah, no, I can wait, Judith.
Any other comments? Either reactions to what you've heard or anything else? I know everyone's been active. Reflections that you've had, things that you'd like us to think about as we move forward and come up with priorities and really start responding this week. Anybody have any? Okay, Jaquie. Oh, Susan, why don't you? You're muted,
You're
Susan.
muted.
Susan, you're muted.
Lower
trying-
left.
There it
lower,
is. Okay.
lower.
I couldn't figure out where it was. So I keep hearing pieces, but nobody putting it all together. That we really need something concrete about this, and probably another group to brainstorm things. There were some wonderful ideas that came out of our Women for Kamala meeting last week of things that could be done within the next 4 months that we ought to, make a plan, make it simple, get on these judges. Who are they? What are they called? What do we, when we call a senator's office, what do we say exactly? And, just get it out there so that we can all get to work on it and get it out to people that we know.
Okay, thanks, Jaquie. Algee, you had a comment
No,
that you
no, it's just another, to Marguerite and everyone else who's chiming in,
Okay.
We had this election last week, right? And people are slowly but surely getting back together. But it's not over. And I can't say that enough. I'll sound like a broken record. It is not over. We absolutely have to do something. And, I'm ready. And I hope that most of you are as well, because it's just that important.
Anne, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I guess, first, I just want to quickly say that I was super glad to be on here today and, kind of hear and see everybody. It certainly feels good, to be in the right room, the right virtual room. I did want to, I think the only other thing I've been thinking about and working on is that the work doesn't end. So there are, the state legislature is in their veto session, and there are things that we can do to continue to kind of hold our line in Illinois. So we should have something out to y'all pretty soon about a couple of gun violence laws. Yeah, they're small things, but they're small things that make a difference all around the edges and kind of help keep pushing. And the stronger we can have and keep our local laws, I mean, maybe that's the mantra that we're going to have for the next 4 years, which well, you said the states need to decide, so leave us alone. We decided our thing, leave it be. So, so if we can kind of keep those kinds of things in mind as we, work on our planning, I think, that can give us some places where we might actually continue to make some progress.
Great. Thanks. I think we've heard some really good concrete things that we'll put together, and I think we all agree that we want to work in coalition with other groups. So we'll do that. I did have an observation, then I'll turn over to Jaquie. So I was out campaigning a lot, and I saw so many volunteers and local and people going to Michigan and people going to Wisconsin, that there is a network out there. And I think there's a lot of energy, and we can't let those networks, those grassroots networks, flitter away. So I think we have a good base. Jaquie Grimshaw.
Hi, guys. I am so sorry I could not be there totally. I've been in and out. My doctor, of course, decided that he had to do everything else except see me. But I was fighting two things: my phone dying and waiting on him. But I heard a lot of the conversation. I didn't hear all of the recommendations. Jeanette, I missed most of your conversation, but I know you're going to make sure I know what it is. And thanks, this is being recorded, so I'm going to hear everything that everybody said. But I just want to thank Anne. Thank Betty and in her absence, as well as Judith, and particularly Joan and Jaquie for coming on and helping us to understand what's going on. I think, Marguerite, you said a lot of great things, but I read your post on Facebook, and I think, we need to hear from you more about what we should be doing going forward. So don't go hide out in your venue and not continue to engage with us. But anyway, I think I support what Algee said, that we cannot be still. We have to get moving. We have to do something. And so maybe we can put that on our webpage, do something with a list of things that can be done, so that we are not wasting any time, that people who are frustrated, who want to go and punch the wall, instead can go and bring together some folks to say, this is what we're going to do. So thank you all. I think we're just getting started. And from the very beginning, I said 2 years, we got to work on the midterms. And if we can get the midterms right, we can retake and get some control over this guy with the House and with the Senate. So carry on. Love you all. Thank you very much for participating tonight. And so, Judith, I'm turning it back to you.
Well, I don't need to do anything else. Thank you. This is great. Great to have everybody. Great to see you. And we will be working together on very specific things, immediate, midterm, and the Senate election. So let's stay close and let's do it. I think we're all ready for it. We have a lot of energy. So thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Everybody have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.